Start. Hey guys, what's up? It is the Kerbal here, and today we are going to start a new series, obviously, because I just started my channel a little while ago, like a day or two, depends on when I upload this video. But anyway, we're starting a new series because every channel needs series, and this is going to be a tutorial for you guys and me on how to do some things in Kerbal Space Program. I say things because it's going to start off as beginning, but we're going to gradually go up. So this is going to be for both of us because I'm kind of new to the game too. And I know how to do some of the basic things, but I'm going to learn on the way as we advance to the more difficult things, Kerbal Space Program. And so obviously every beginner's first thing is to get into orbit, and that is simple enough that I know how to do it. And so I'm just going to show you guys some of my insight. And so obviously the first thing you do when you start a new game is you go to the vehicle assembly building, which is where we are now. And so if you haven't ever played the game before, well, the vehicle assembly building is where you build all your rockets and all your different ships and all that. And so it comes with all these different parts that you can use. And so the beginning thing that you need is a pod, so we use this little robotic one, and then it shows you all the different things that you can use. And see, I say things because there's just so many, you can't really just... There's rockets, and then there's all these utilities like ladders, hitchhikers, storage units where you can store Kerbals, docking ports, all these different things. And then here's the loading thing. So if you the loading button. So if you ever have a ship that you built, you can load it up if you save it. And so we're gonna actually start getting into the buildings here, as you see. So we're putting in the battery. We just put in the battery, which is basically we can store electricity, so we can keep our satellite moving and all that. And now we're just looking for extra large solar panels, so we can keep the battery nice and charged by the sun, and so we'll be able to use our satellite, which really doesn't have a purpose right now. But we're gonna call it a communication satellite, just cause there's no real point to having a satellite in the game just yet. Well, there's no real point to the game at all, to be honest, but it's a fun exploration game. Well, it doesn't have a real goal, and it looks like one of my utilities there, was that the gravioli detector has some sort of weird texture bug, and it's just showing us black, but whatever, I'll just ignore that. And so some nice instruments there, so you can detect all these different scientific readings from in space. So although you could probably just look those up on Google, to be honest, there's no real point to having those, but it's just a nice little feature. And so that's pretty much our satellite right there. That's nice and done. And so now we're going to get into the actual rocketry and getting it into orbit, which is what the main part of this is. So you're going to obviously need a decoupler, so you can decouple everything if you because you don't want your huge rocket to be there when you get into orbit, because that's just ugly. Actually, before we add the decouplers, add a small rocket here just for some maneuvering. A very, 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 very efficient rocket, but it doesn't have that much thrust. So we'll give it a little bit of fuel, these little tiny fuel cans. And then we'll attach the stack decoupler. If you can't tell, this is post-commentary, so I'm just trying to... I recorded this about 5 hours ago, so I'm just trying to remember what I've done here. I don't remember what I'm looking for to be... okay, there we go. I'm just going to attach the stack decoupler. And now we're going to get into the actual rocketry, which is like the main part of the video here. And so first thing that you're going to need to do is get some of these fuel tanks. They're not the orange one would probably have the exact same amount of fuel as these two what is that color, grayish ones, but I don't know, the gray ones are just better. They have the same mass, same fuel container. It's pretty much just like two of them equals one orange one, but I guess they're stabler. And we're going to do this. We're going to do this so that we're going to use solid fuel boosters. If you don't know what those are, basically with liquid fuel, obviously you can contain the amount of fuel going into the engine. So with liquid fuel, what you do is you can control your thrust. But with solid fuel boosters, they just burn maximum at they just burn the max thrust all the way. So obviously they're good for getting out of the atmosphere, but not really good for maneuvering because you can't stop them once they activate it. And now we're just going to add some separatrons so that when we decouple them with our radial decouplers, they don't crash straight into our main sail engine, because that would be bad, and then our satellite would crash and die. as much as a satellite can, I guess. I am back. Sorry about that, guys. I had to go for a second, but hopefully I shall not be interrupted again. So anyway, where were we? Oh yes, the solid fuel boosters. So basically these things are, the Separatrons that is, are good for pushing away debris once it's kind of useless at the point, because obviously when a solid fuel booster's out of fuel, we want to get it out of there, so we're going to decouple it. But just to make sure it doesn't actually crash into our mainsail, we're just going to fire the Separatrons, and that'll just give it enough thrust to blast it away from our engine. And so this is just a very simple rocket, just one liquid fuel and 4 solid boosters just to get into the atmosphere, and then the little mini engine in order to get it to the proper altitude that we want. And we're going to use this just to get a nice satellite into orbit. And with that, we can check the gravity of Earth from space, which is the exact same, so it doesn't really... Anyway, and we can check the temperature of low orbit Kerbal. It's not Earth, it's Kerbal, that's what I meant to say. And here we're adding some stability launcher enhancer or something like that. Basically, it keeps it from wobbling when you're about to launch, and keeps it steady, so that way the whole thing doesn't shake when you're going to launch, because that would provide a very bad launch. And so I'm just rearranging the staging now, making it so that every time I press space, I want this to happen at this stage. And so first, obviously, the engines fire, then we decouple, then the Separatrons fire, and then we decouple again, and then we fire the little baby engine, and then yeah. So we're saving this off, and I think we're going to do action groups here. Yeah. And so action groups, basically, whenever you press the key binding, it will do the specified task. Like when we press run, it will toggle the solar panels. When we press 2, it will activate the Communitron, so we can get back to base and beam in all our information that we've collected. And I believe that's all we're going to really need for action groups. Unless I'm wrong. I believe we're toggling all our different instruments so that we can beam them back. We can beam our information back to the Kerbal Space Center for our scientists to study and analyze. And that should be it. So here we go. We're going to launch and get our first satellite into orbit together. Together forever. Okay. And if this will ever load up, we will see anytime now. There we go. And so this is obviously the launch window. We got our nav ball on the bottom. We have our altitude on the top, our altitude to sea level, which cannot always be good. There is a radar altitude, which is your actual altitude to the ground, and that is not sea level, so that will tell you how far you actually are away from the ground, not from sea level, which is really handy, but unfortunately it's only in cockpit view, so you have to go into cockpit view. This is the map. This will show you where you are in the whole solar system. There's Kerbal with the moon and Minimus, and now here's the actual whole solar system with Joule, Dres, Elu, Eve, Duna, and other planets that I can't remember the name of. But yeah, so, and here we are on Kerbal. Really makes you feel small and insignificant, doesn't it? I believe we're about to launch. We're just checking our staging here, making sure everything's set up properly before flight. On the left, you got your thrust. On the left of the nav ball, you got your thrust, I should say. And on the right, you got your G's, how the G-force you're experiencing, which technically doesn't really have an effect just yet, but I'm assuming they're going to add it soon. Shift is to throttle up, Control is to throttle down. T is for advanced SAS, which, now that I think about it, I don't think we actually put on the rocket, did we? No, I don't believe we did. That could be a problem. Advanced SAS isn't really necessary, it's just really helpful if you're new to the game and you're just beginning. Basically, Advanced SAS will take control of your pilot. It will take control of your pilot, and so basically you don't have to, it'll automatically keep the position that's locked at. If it can, that is, if it has the ability to. If it's being overwhelmed by engine power, then it won't have the ability. But as you can see, we are slightly spinning, which is annoying, and now we'd use this advanced SAS to stop it, but we don't have any. You can stop your rolling with Q and E, but it's easy to overshoot, so I just leave it there. And our solid fuel boosters left us just a second ago, So now it's just our main sail, and we're starting to do our gravity turn, I believe is what it's called. Basically, we're starting to turn west so we can get that horizontal velocity that we want, which is around 2,200 meters, I believe. That's what the a decent orbital speed is. And so we need to get our horizontal velocity so that we can keep spinning and get out of the atmosphere and into orbit and get our satellite up. And so we're now just pretty much just using our main sail here to just get as much thrust as we can and get us into the atmosphere. And just checking our apoapsis, which is the highest point of your flight, which is, what is that, 70,000 is, I believe, is what the lowest is the lowest your apoapsis can be for orbit, for Kerbal anyway, because the atmosphere on Kerbal stops at around 69,000 meters in the air, or 69 kilometers in the air. So 70,000 is a good one. And now I'm just checking. These are maneuver nodes. Basically, it will predict your flight path if you burn at this angle or this trajectory for this long. And so I'm just using it to get a relative distance of how long we need to burn to get our nice circular orbit here. And so I'm just checking the apoapsis and the periapsis. The periapsis being the lowest point in your orbit, and also is the fastest point in your orbit. And now I'm just starting to burn a little bit here to get our periapsis to appear and get our apoapsis up. And it does look like we are running a little bit low on fuel. Oh wait, no, I'm burning here so that I didn't put any sort of RCS on the ship. So the only way I can actually maneuver it without having to go like an inch every minute, the only way I can move it is with the gimbaling on the main sail engine here. The gimbaling is being able to point where our thrust is coming out of. And now that we have it on the blue marker, which is where the maneuver node is, we're just going to time warp a little bit with the period and comma buttons, or you can click right on it in the top left, and basically it just warps you to it'll just warp the whole solar system head a certain amount of times. And now we are at that point, and we are going to burn just enough so that we get our periapsis to appear and our apoapsis where we want it to be. And it looks like, boom, we have a nice orbit. And so technically we are in orbit, but I would like to get a nice circular orbit here, so I'm going to use the small engine that we have attached to our satellite and circularize us. But first, let's extend our solar panels and our communitron and our different communication devices, and let's turn on our different scientific resources, so you can start beaming our information back down to this to mission control, so our scientists can analyze the information and do whatever they please with it. But in the meantime, let's circularize our orbit with that little engine, which is very, very, very efficient. As you can see, it's using barely any fuel from what little fuel there is, and it's managing to push us just enough so that we can get that perfect circular orbit that we require. And now it's pretty much just fine-tuning everything, but this is technically in orbit, if that is what you came here for. But I am a perfectionist, so I'm going to try to get this as perfect as possible. And that does take me, according to this, it takes me a good 6 minutes to get it perfect. But hey, perfect is perfect, and practice makes perfect, so might as well start. But that is basically the gist of it. That is how you get into a nice perfect orbit. Well, this is how you get into an orbit. Soon coming up is the perfect orbit. This is just me moving around in the nav ball. Since we don't have that extra weight, the extra mass of the main sail and the empty fuel tanks, it's a lot easier to maneuver with it's a lot easier to maneuver on the nav ball. So we're just time warping over to our apoapsis, so we can extend our periapsis a little bit here and get it into, oh no, it looks like we went a little bit past our apoapsis. I'm not sure what, oh, I think I'm trying to lower our apoapsis, I believe. Oh no, we're extending our periapsis. Okay, just trying to get that nice circular orbit, which really isn't necessary at all, because this satellite is pretty much useless. It's just for the look of it. But if we get it, then you know those people down on Kerbin and all the cities, those families, those little boys wanting to become astronauts, they all go to the KSC where they know that they do things perfect and right. What? I don't know. Alright, so it looks like we're coming along the 5 minutes left mark of the video. Just trying to circularize the orbit still. It does take me a good it takes me a good while to get this perfect orbit that I require for no reason, and I usually don't do this, but I left some debris. Obviously, as you can see, I left the main engine. I left it orbiting Kerbin, so that's not going to crash. Usually I like to make it crash into the earth to clean up the junk. I don't know why, but that's just something I do. But I decided to leave it there, I guess, because I'm not sure if it's just me that likes to clean up my debris, but I do know a majority of people don't clean up their debris in orbit, so I figure this is nice. This is like a realistic kind of approach, like we're at Earth, like real Earth, is trying to deal with the fact that we have so much debris up in space at this point, and we have to actually clean it up, because it's soon it's going to actually be hazardous to send ships into space, because they're going to have to like dodge all the debris, because a small object for like the size of a pen going at 2 kilometers every second, that is pretty fast. So obviously we are going to need to clean that up, and so I'm trying to recreate that, I guess, in a way, with cluttering us up with a little bit of debris here and there. One engine isn't really that much, and it's got to be pretty easy to avoid, since it it's pretty huge and it's the only thing here. So, but when we get to the end of this series, when we I guess the end of the series will be going to landing on every single planet. I don't know. Once we land on every planet, I guess that will be the end of the series. And we're leaving the solar system. That will be the end of the series when we leave the solar system. That'll be fun. But I guess we're gonna have a lot of debris by the time we get to that point when we're able to leave the solar system. Well, leaving the solar system isn't that much of a challenge. Well, I would think it wouldn't be. I don't know. I've never actually done it. You just have to have a lot of Delta V. But I definitely want to explore all the planets. I want to land on Lathe, which is a planet of Jewel. It's the only other celestial object that has water on it besides Kerbin. And it's got an Earth-like atmosphere. It's very, very dense atmosphere. I want to check out. I've only actually managed to land on one other planet in myself, which was Eve, the easiest planet in my opinion to land on because it's the closest. But that's the only planet I've ever actually landed on. I didn't even orbit it. I just went like straight. I just dove straight in head first for it. But it looks like I'm checking all of our instruments, making sure everything's working, and they all appear to be. Now I'm just going to rename our satellite to a communications satellite, or comms satellite, if you'll see, just so you can keep everything organized. And boom, we officially have a satellite in perfect, well, not perfect, because it would be almost impossible to get an absolutely perfect orbit, meter to meter, but in a nice circular orbit, as you can see. I'm not sure if it's equatorial. I never really checked, but hey, well, that's fun for another video, I guess. And now we're hitting the 1 minute left mark, as you can see. And then just checking what's the debris that we left here, if it has any fuel. It has a small amount of fuel, I think. Or does it? No, I believe it's actually completely out of fuel. And so we're just, I was seeing if there's any sort of way we could rename it to debris, but there isn't. So I guess it's just gonna float there. But that is it. And switching back to the comm satellite, and this is our completed satellite. Let's get a cinematic shot of this. Try to find a good pose here, good angle. That looks pretty cool right there. Let's take a picture with steam. If I remember the button here. Now let's just point our communication satellite. Let's just point our communitron down to Earth so the people can use their cell phones now. It's been pretty hard to use your cell phone without the satellite, but now they can use their satellites and watch YouTube videos and all that. But it looks like we're coming up on the end of the video, so I thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time on whatever video comes up next.